This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Yo, this is Sharmane from the single Simulcast. And when I'm not making you laugh or making up parody songs, I'm kicking back, listening to Militantly Mixed.
Hey y'all, welcome to Militantly Mixed, the podcast about race and identity from the mixed race perspective. I am your host, Sharmane, aka Mixed Girl Maine. And I announced earlier this week on social media that I was going to be taking, a mental health break during the month of April. Listening back to my last couple episodes and realizing kind of the depth of emotion that I've been going through and not really being able to kind of clamp it down just for the sake of doing a 10 to 15 minute intro really started to get to me. Not to mention conversations with loved ones who have told me that it's okay to take breaks, and me being stubborn and them telling me that I can dish out the advice about taking mental health breaks but not take that advice myself. Coupled with that, I just found out I have a health issue I was not aware of last week, so I have to sort out some of my health things. And by the time you'll be listening to this episode, or by the time it's available to listen, I will be traveling for my speaking engagements in Northern California. So I got a lot going on, and I finally have to admit that it is okay to take these breaks. I do need time to kind of give in to my grief a little bit because I've been trying to block it just for the sake of being functional and fighting that depression tooth and nail, hoping that it doesn't envelop me. I really need to kind of focus and take that break. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But the show is not going to slow down for this. Because I do have several banked episodes, there will not be a gap, or at least not for the foreseeable next 2 or 3 weeks, there will not be a gap for Militantly Mixed. Those episodes will go out. I have made commitments to a couple people for specific dates, so I'm not going to shirk those commitments just because I'm dealing with some stuff. Those episodes are going to air, including the one that you're about to listen to. I got some great stuff, so I don't want to slow that down. And so basically what the break means, when I say I'm taking a break, I will slow down a bit on social media, which I've kind of been doing for the last couple weeks anyway. I'm not going to be interviewing any new people, with the exception of the people I'll be interviewing when I'm doing my speaking engagements next week. I will not be interviewing any new people during, at least for the next probably 2-3 weeks in April. But I have plenty of banked interviews so that there won't be any gaps in the show. And I'm not going to be vetting any future guests until May, because that's actually a pretty heavy emotional drain to be able to do as well. Not drain in a bad way, but just the listening to the stories of all my potential mixed race guests and hearing the struggles that they deal with and comparing them to my own struggles, things like that. That can be really emotionally heavy to go through. And then sometimes we get into some really heavy stuff on the interview. And so you got to come down from that. So it's just kind of piling up, I guess, a little bit. And I just need to take a little bit of a break to kind of slough off the heaviness. And then I can get back at it fully refreshed and ready to go. But like I said, you as the audience member will not see or listen to any gaps because the episodes are still going to be present. The break that I'm going to be taking is sort of seeking new guests, doing long intros, social media posts and promotion and things like that. I'm just going to kind of slow down for my own personal health during the month of April, and then I'll kind of kick back into gear after that. When things kind of level out a little bit, I need to deal with my grief and everything right now as being kind of the biggest thing, so that I can kind of get through a day without being reduced to a puddle of tears. That's pretty much the big thing. So not that I think it's a bad thing. It's just something that I don't want to be doing every day of my life. I want to get to a place where I can kind of function. So that's what's happening. Okay, that's the heavy stuff. By the time you'll be listening to this, or by the time it's available anyways, 2 of my 3 major events are going to be done. So I'm not going to promote those necessarily on this recording, but there still would be one more event about to happen, which will be Wednesday, April 3rd at Sierra College for the Love Your Body Week. So if you're interested in that, you can probably do a Google search for Sierra College, Rockland, California, the Love Your Body thing. I'm going to be primarily focusing on loving your brown bodies and not allowing the beauty standards of groups that are different than your own to be put onto you, and basically not allowing your brown body to be colonized. That is sort of my focus for the Love Your Body Week, my portion of the Love Your Body Week participation. So if you're interested, come on down. And then I will be recording all of the events that I am participating in. So depending on how they fit into the Militantly Mixed structure, they'll either air as a regular episode or they'll air as a special episode. Because primarily these events I'm going to are focused on the LGBT portion of my intersectionality, not necessarily the mixed race portion, although obviously my LGBTness is filtered through my mixed raceness. So it's going to be a part of it. It just might not be the standard militantly mixed episodes. So I'm still going to work out how I will release those to the audience, but certainly my interview that I will be doing with Clarmundo Sullivan at the Lavender Library on April 1st will definitely be an episode of Militantly Mixed, barring there's no technical difficulties, because I'll be recording it myself in person. That's what I think is everything that I need to announce. Back to sort of the regular things. This show really absolutely survives with the sponsorship and support of our audience. As I say, most weeks, this is a fan-sponsored podcast, and with your support, it really does help us continue to keep going and growing. And that has become evident recently as some of the sponsorship and donations have slowed down a bit. So it absolutely does help. We can definitely use your support. There are 2 channels for support. There is the patreon.com/militantlymixed. That is where you can do a monthly sponsorship as low as $1 to as high as anything you wish. There are different reward levels depending on the subscription level that you pick. And as of right now, the subscriptions that we currently get are covering our hosting fees for the show, so that you get access to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Soundcloud, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube. All of that is through the sponsorship that we receive on Patreon right now. And I am exceedingly grateful that that has continued to go on from pretty much our first, I think, 11 or 10 days of doing the show. We got our first sponsor. So, and some people have increased their sponsorship over time, which I'm very grateful for as well. So that's what we got going on the Patreon side. If you would like to do a one-time donation or sort of a every so often donation, you can go to paypal.me/militantlymixed and hit us with a donation as low as $1 to as high as anything you wish as well. And like I said, the Patreon really supports our hosting fees and kind of the maintenance of the show itself. And the PayPal sponsorship helps me with upgrades. It helps me with promotional materials. Hopefully, as I start to pick up more and more speaking engagements and live recordings, eventually the sponsorship might help us actually travel to different places. So maybe I can come to a city near you at a college or a cafe or a club somewhere where I can do an interview live and in person in front of an audience. That is something I'm about to do here in Sacramento next week, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I can already tell I want to do more of those. And I haven't even gotten there yet. So that's how your sponsorship will help the show. I love meeting people that are listening to the show or talking to them through social media. That emotional and moral support is wonderful as well, and it really keeps me on the right track, knowing that this is an important path to continue to follow, because mixed folks don't have many channels and many avenues towards a community, and I'm doing my best to try to make sure that we build the biggest mixed race community possible so that everybody feels represented wherever we are. So yeah, I think I will end with that this week and move it on over to my guest. And be ready, this is a really great interview. I'm going to play the track of Full Blood Prince first, and then we'll go into the interview. James just made some of the things he says early on, I remember from the beginning of our conversation, was really like touching me directly. A lot of the issues that I've had, or a lot of things that I face about and sort of the being exoticized by monoracial people, things like that. We cover that. We talk about the complications of just sort of presenting as a mixed race person in the world. He's from the UK, I'm from the US, and we both have very similar struggles in terms of that. And it was really a great interview. This is also one that I did without a pre-screen. So we pretty much just got on Skype and started talking and went at it, which is not typical for me. As you know, I do pre-screen all my guests just to kind of build rapport. And in this case, we kind of just jumped right in. So yeah, that's it. That's what's going on with this episode. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and move it on to James Dugan and his track Full Blood Prince.
Staring at my face in the mirror, wondering are you black or white? Man yells back and says, see me clearer, this ain't just black or white. I am so tired being asked where you from, where you really from. So done being told you're only half, if that's all. It's no fun being lost denied duality. I'll make a space just for me in between. 'Cause I'm a full-blood prince, wondering when you'll be convinced that I'm a full-blood prince, never half brown, half white, of course. No, I'm a full-blood prince. Got to choose on me. Think about us, what we meant to do, where we meant to put you. Don't belong to us, don't belong to them. Don't look at us, don't look at them. So I've got to choose, gotta be like you, gotta think you live not the way you want me to, make you comfortable, knowing I've chosen a race that fits my face. I'm a full-blood prince, wondering when you'll be convinced that I'm a full-blood prince, never half brown, half white, of course. No, I'm a full-blood prince. Do I have a home tonight? Swear I never lied. Why are you questioning my home all the time? Telling you my skin is not a sign. So do I have a home tonight? Swear I never lied. Why are you questioning my home all the time? Telling you my skin is not a sign. Every conversation is a family dissection. You look at me like I'm broke. If found as you're unsold, brown skin with mocha tone, exotic in a foreign zone. No, I'm not what you expect, but you don't have to impose. Look at my mom and say I can't be her son. Show me a bitch, show me Americans born and bred here throughout the heritage. Clearly don't fit the stereotype. Let me shine a light. Hopefully one day you can accept me in my full blood. I'm a full blood. Wondering when you'll be, when you'll be. I'm a full blood prince, full blood, half brown, half white, of course. No, I'm a full blood prince. I'm a full blood prince. I'm a full
All right, so my guest this week is James Dugan. He is an artist from the UK. And James, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Let us know what your ethnic background is, and then we'll get into it.
Hi, yeah. So I'm an artist from South London. I've just started, so I've been doing music properly for about a year now. And I just released my first song called Full Blood Prince, which essentially just starts where most people start with me, which is my race, the colour of my skin. So yeah, my heritage, I was born in Britain, and I have my dad's from Britain and Ireland. My mum is from India, but the Indian colony that she's from, I think it's Goa, is actually a Portuguese colony. So we have Portuguese blood on my mum's side as well. So yeah.
Okay. And so the way we connected is through Twitter. You ended up hitting me up on Twitter about the show, but you dropped a link to your song at the time, and it is, I mean, for me, it's just an ideal piece of of like hey, they don't make songs about mixed race people, kind of a thing. So why don't you talk about the inspiration behind the actual line? Because you have some key lines that are just very, like, any mixed person could hear it no matter what their ethnic background is, and they'd just be like, oh my gosh, this is my life. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was kind of weird because when I wrote the song, I mean, all my songs that I write, I kind of write to me or about me. And so all those experiences that are in the song, all the lines are about me. But then when I started to research it, because I thought I should look at what other people have experienced, and kind of see, how it would relate. And it was just so similar. I talked to my cousins that are similar to me, have the same mix. And things like, where are you from? Where you really from, and like the amount you get asked that, like comments like you're half brown, half white, half caste, kind of treating you like half as person. I got once, you're kind of brown from the waist down, or something like that, or white from the waist up, something like that. Half your body is white, half your body's not. So yeah, I think the whole song is this thing of kind of looking in the mirror and thinking you're half a person, and that's how it starts. And the way it ends is kind of getting to a point, and it draws from Harry Potter, Half-Blood Prince, because it was weird, because I was writing this song and I came and my mum was watching Half-Blood Prince, and I thought, this is quite a nice title, because the concept of it is trying to get to a point for me where I saw myself as a full person who has heritage from all sorts of places, instead of this half this and half this, which I personally doesn't resonate with me. That doesn't help me think about my identity.
Right, and that's something that it's so hard to explain when you're talking to monoracial people. There's the jokes about what body parts we got from what races we come from. For me, being part Japanese, a lot I get asked if I'm a real Japanese wife, subservient, like the stereotypes, that kind of stuff, like, really gross types of things that people will just dare to ask you. How they try to invade our bodies, invade our spaces without even asking permission, or they're asking permission as they're already reaching their hands out towards us. The constant exoticism and eroticism of us because we are different from them. Like all of that kind of stuff is just, it's so taxing and so weathering to our identities that I think in some cases, and maybe especially when we're younger, we tend to just, yeah, sure, whatever you say. Because we don't know what to do.
When you, like, for me, the time I'd always get asked, no matter what, I'd always get asked is when I go for a haircut. Because it's like in the UK, you try and make conversation, they usually ask about the weather. Everyone else gets asked about the weather, but the first question is, where are you from? And then you kind of have to be like, I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes. I could give them a whole family history, or I could just say, just go for what they want. Because if I say London, they always say, no, where are you really from?
Right.
Where is it? And then I have to explain. So
that part of your track was really like hearing that, not just that you said, where are you from, but then you're like, no, but where are you really from? No, but where are you really from? And you have kind of a few
moments
repetition of that same line. That is our life in a nutshell. Like, you can't just be one thing. And so as a young person, I would tell people, like you said, okay, let me give you my family history. Let me show you my credentials. And now as an older person, I'm 41 now, I let them jump through all the hoops. Where are you from? Here. No, but where are you from? Oh, I'm American, or what nationality? I'm American. They're like, well, where's that? What does that mean? Well, America from America, American from America. Well, where are you from? California. And, then I go to like what city I lived in and all this kind of stuff until finally they're like, what I'm asking you. And I'm like, I'm going to let you ask, because I want you to know how not your business it is if I don't want to tell you.
That's exactly that, because there's a line in this song is, that you want me to essentially, makes you comfortable if I choose a race that fits my face.
Right.
And that essentially just hits the nail on the head for me. Because that just seems what they want to hear, right? If you've got brown skin, tell me that you're from somewhere with brown skin. So you usually, I get, from Spain to Latin American to Turkish to everything.
So in your presentation then, like apart from say the barbershop or whatever, if you're walking down the street, do people like you said, they only want to see what's brown in you, but do they see you as mixed? or do they see you as whatever brown they've decided you are?
No, usually I get they'll think I'm Middle Eastern. That's the main one I think I get most of the time. So they just think I'm foreign. When I start talking, I think that's when people start to think I'm from the UK. But born here, not from here. It's one of those weird things where people hear your accent, but that doesn't mean anything to them. It's they're just focused on your skin color.
Right.
But I think, also you get a lot of people just interested. I think, I forget that the UK, I don't know actually the stats in America, but the UK is something like 90% white. And so if I go outside of London, which is like more 50-50, most people have rarely interacted with someone who looks like me.
Right.
And so they're just interested. And it's a bit like if you watch this film Get Out, by Jordan Peele, it's the concept of that, of people don't know what to do, and there's this weird thing where they're trying to relate to you, but it comes across completely wrong.
Right.
And it's the same thing. I think that people trying to relate to you, and they think that your identity is only your race because you're mixed race or whatever it is. That's the only thing that's important to you. That's the only part of your identity that's important. And so they try to relate to that and ask you about it and say, oh, you're exotic or something.
Fucking exotic. Why?
You know what I mean?
Why do they call us that?
What it can make, the way that it can make you feel. Lots of my friends, I've talked about the song, and they said, but what's wrong with me asking where you're from? I'm just interested. I said, but you don't understand. When you say no, it's not asking the question. It's denying that I'm right.
Exactly.
It's saying that I'm wrong and asking again. And that's the problem. And it makes people feel like, that I'm, and it's in the song, I'm not from here. But if I go to India, I'm not from there. When I go to India, people get either angry or they're really confused because they've never seen someone like me before. Never. But they know I'm kind of Indian, but they have no clue. So it's that thing. You're just kind of stuck in the middle.
Right. So in my experience, because I have both of my grandmothers are from other countries. I have one from Japan, one from England, but both my grandfathers are from here. So my understanding of British heritage and British culture comes directly from this one lady, this one woman that I'm related to. And I found that all my preconceived notions and things, and I watch a lot of British comedy and stuff like that, I just had this set view of things. And then when I went to London for the first time, I went with my white cousin, like fully white cousin. He's my nan's sister's grandchild, like we're cousins, but we're totally different races. And we're walking around, and it makes no sense why we're together, because he's probably about 15 years older than me. I'm yellow and brown, and he's just fully white. He sounds Australian, but he's from it's because he moved there when he was 11 or whatever. And people are asking us, like, what? People are straight up asking us, why are we together? They want to understand what's our connection. And then, we say, well, we're cousins. And they're like, but no, because that's not possible, because he's white with an Australian accent and you're whatever the fuck you are. What's the real story? Then there was like real questions about whether or not I was some kind of a bride, like an anchor bride type of a thing. What? Yes, I got that question at a cafe of all places. And you're just like, okay. I got asked to see my passport, even though I did not show my passport, things like that. Really? And so it was such a shock because in terms of what Americans get to consume from British television or whatever, you almost always see like one black character and they'll say, oh, but you're half and half, right? And then like that's the acknowledgement that like at least they are aware of mixedness in some form. And so, get a false sense of security that if I go there, they're going to be able to detect it, and they'll be totally cool, and they won't ask me weird questions. And I was totally wrong about that. In your case, because you are from there, and that's your culture, that's where you're from and everything like that, but you're constantly othered. Are there spaces that you ever feel like you're fully accepted as a British person, or do you always have to explain?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think on a level, most people I speak to, and I'd say my age, it's not that they don't think I'm British. It's that it's this weird thing of kind of like that's why I say in the song "uncomfortable" that they're uncomfortable with it, because it
Right.
doesn't sit well. That my skin color can also fit with my British identity. So I think there is always that element of, but you have different skin color. But I think beyond that, I don't think there's anything that you're not British. If you know what I mean. I think it gives that feeling of they just don't think it's right. It's still that concept. It seems kind of archaic that now that British people are white, Americans are white.
Right.
It's such a strange thing, and that's why in this song I say, show me the Brit, show me the American that's born and bred throughout the whole heritage. Because you think Native Americans were native to America before, loads of people migrated there. And similar to if you go back far enough in British history, you'll see people that migrated here.
Right.
And so that thing is, where's everyone from? I don't really understand why we still have.
Yeah, that a land just automatically has a particular color of people. In some places makes sense, but because the migratory pattern of humanity does, start south and go north. And maybe it's different for the UK, but here in the States, yeah, of course, because we have indigenous people that are brown. When white people come over and they try to claim America as a real thing, they're like, white people have been here or whatever. Yeah, but there were brown people here first. Oh, but they weren't Americans. But that's on the same land, and they were here for way longer than Americans. Even to now, we haven't been here. Americans haven't been here long enough. And with the indigenous, without there really being the concept of indigenous people in the UK necessarily, or at least do they count whatever the first white people that showed up there as the indigenous people for the island?
Yeah, this is my thing with it, is that and that's why I put this song out first, was that I think it's so easy to overcomplicate and to overthink race, especially when you start talking to other people, because they bring their own preconception of the way it should be, and you start to worry about all these little things. But for me, my skin, other people I'm sure will be very different, but for me, my skin color is just my skin color. It's like my facial features. It's my nose, it's my eyes.
Right.
It's as important as those features. It's no more important than anything else. And my heritage is important, and that's its own thing. But overthinking it, because I read a lot of comments now about people talking about their experiences, and they're so worried about their responsibilities to one part of the heritage or one part, and they feel like they're not fully meeting those requirements, because they're not being accepted if it's Japanese or it's and that's why I wonder whether people would help. It would help people to just. That's why I say Full Blood Prince is just to accept that you're one person who has all this rich culture and heritage that you have, and you have your skin color, and you're proud of that, and you're proud of your heritage, and not overthink it to the point where you're so worried about meeting other people's requirements for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. No, it makes a lot of sense, and that's one thing that I really did like about the song when you sent it to me, because it's that thing of us always having to explain that just because I'm technically half white and a quarter black and a quarter Japanese doesn't mean that my identity matches. Like I said, I have a white grandfather I don't know, and I don't know his German-Irish side. I don't have that cultural connection. So it's hard to claim it, because all I can list it as an ethnicity, but I can't really claim it as mine because I have no access to it. In terms of the British culture, I have a little bit of an access to it. But primarily, I was Japanese and black growing up. I grew up in black neighborhoods around black people. And when I was home with my mom's side of the family, I was Japanese in my house. So I feel like I have claim to those places because I have access to those cultural experiences, traditions, language, stuff like that. And even my face, like my skin color is this sort of yellow color, but my facial features are more closer to black folks. And so black people can always tell that I'm black. It's only happened maybe one time where someone said, "You had to tell me." I would never have guessed it. one
Nice.
time in 41 years, a black
Yeah.
person told me they couldn't detect it. And that's kind of crazy. Like, it was a totally different experience for me. For you, though, do they ask what generation of, like, because they're othering you and saying you're brown obviously comes from somewhere else, so you can't possibly be a real Brit. Do they ask what generation back your family comes to?
No, I don't usually get that question. With my parents, it's more, I get that's not your mum. And I'm like, no, that's my mum. Like, that's the first time I ever thought about my race was when I was about, I think, 12, when I properly, because all of it just went over my head. Because I don't know why, but as a kid, whenever people would say stuff at school, I'd have that thing of, but people like me don't get racism. I don't know why. I thought, I know that people from these places have experienced racism incredibly and in recent history, but I never thought that people like me experienced racism. So anytime anyone said anything like at school, I get called yellow, or people would say this, that, I'd never thought that was racism. I never thought of it like that. But when my mum, so I was in a restaurant and this waitress came over and she was chatting, and then she said, my brother was with me, and he's a little bit darker than me. And she said, oh, that's your son. And then she said, is he? And she was kind of saying adopted, and my mum was like, no, that's my son. And that was the first time I got really upset, because I was like, that's my mum. I'm not adopted. Like,
right.
That really upset me.
And also just the audacity to ask that question. I mean, what if you were adopted and they didn't tell you? And now you got some random person who just like shook up your whole world? Like, how awful.
Yeah, so strange.
So what did you understand about your ethnicity as a child? Did you said it kind of blew past you till you're 12? Can you remember understanding that your parents were different colors and that's just how you guys were versus how other people maybe were?
Well, I think, we were chatting before and you said, you didn't realize that you weren't black until you into your teens or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a similar thing when you're a kid. And that's why I used a picture of me as a kid for the cover art. Because when I was a kid, I didn't care. I didn't think about it. I never looked in the mirror and thought anything. I just thought that was my face.
Right.
It's only when you experience other people, when you start to be able to communicate with other people, and they bully you, or they say, when I was 11, people started to say, you're not brown, you're not white, you're not male, you're not female, you're nothing. And that's been true up until most recently. People, I was in a bar and he said, where are you from? And I explained, and he said, so you're nothing. And I think that's when I started to realize. I started to realize when I was 11, 12, that people saw me differently. But I didn't see it as racism until about 2 years ago, 1 year ago, because I was playing a match. I was playing football, and a guy on the other team fell over something. Something happened anyway. He said, well, at least I'm not a coon. And I was like, that's really weird thing to say. And that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, maybe all these things that have happened to me, like people call me yellow and Chinaman at school. I was like, maybe this is racism. I was like, maybe people do see me differently. But yeah, it was very recently, really, that I've considered it that way.
I'm like taken aback. I'm a little surprised that the term coon made it to the UK. For some reason, I thought that was a very American term, racist term.
Well, yeah, I never heard it before until I had to look it up. I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
But I was kind of like, when you hear something, you're like, I know that's not good.
Yeah, it just feels wrong.
Yeah, it does. And I looked, and then that's the other thing is that term, or horrible term, and I was talking to my parents because my mum got called that quite a lot actually at school.
Oh, really?
But it's not usually a term referred to people who look like me. And so it's that thing of, can I take offense? If I'm not exactly this, like if someone says, I know, terrible term for a white person or an Indian person, can I take offense? Because I'm not that, I don't associate as that. And I have always felt that. I don't know about you.
That's the thing. Like, and I probably have felt differently on and off throughout my life, but where I am now is I'm always stunned, just utterly stunned, that all people don't get a stomach ache when they hear something grossly racist, regardless of who it's directed at, right? Like, I'm not Arabic. I have some friends that are Arabic. My husband is half Arabic. I have heard Arabic people, especially here in the States, called terrorists just on the, virtue of their ethnicity, and I'm horrified when I hear it. But why are these other groups of people, the vast majority of white people or the vast majority of Black Americans, why are they not just as turned off by hearing that term just because it's not directed at them? I'm Japanese, and Asians have a huge racist deal with even with each other, like amongst other Asians or whatever. Like Japanese in particular, they're Asian, we're Japanese, we got our own island, we're north of them, we're different, better, special. And so when but at the same time, so like I could see older Japanese people that I was connected to growing up, like, hear somebody call a Chinese person a Chinaman, or any Asian a Chinaman, right? Or, any of the other terms. And they're just like, well, it wasn't about me. But how, how does it not turn your stomach? So where I'm at now is that I can't imagine what it takes for a person who is completely oblivious to how racism makes people of color feel, how that doesn't cross across other ethnicities. Like, it definitely is disturbing. So it's a strange thing. It really, it's weird how compartmentalized we are as people. That and so in like in your case where you're just like, I'm not fully white, I'm not fully brown or whatever, but this is a derogatory term towards white people. Can I take offense? I want to say yes, And if not on your own behalf, then certainly on like a humanity behalf type situation, right?
Yeah. I think that has a lot to do with, people's experiences. So, for example, like, I don't understand, other issues that other people go through that I haven't personally gone through. And I wonder whether it's one of those things where, in media, we take a lot of our experiences of the way the world is, I think, from the way it's shown in films, TV, music, art in general. And so when you see particular roles shown in a particular way, the token mixed race person that, is treated as this kind of other foreign thing, then that's your only experience. Then, you don't really understand it. That's the only way you can understand it. So I think a lot of understanding would come from not just people, like things like podcasts like this that talk about, actually when you're asking the simple question of where you're from and denying it is a really actually difficult thing to hear several times a day. And I think that's really important that people talk about it.
I agree. I think there's this new concept which isn't fully developed yet, but I've been co-opting the term because it makes so much sense to me. But in terms of racial studies here in the States, there's this thing about the idea of racial trauma and its physical effects on your body, your health, etc. And so like here in the States, and I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but here in the States, Black people are misdiagnosed at a higher rate than white people in general. And then it kind of goes down the line. So Black people first are heavily misdiagnosed, and then people of Latin descent, and then Asians, all the way down. And in some cases, it's so bad, the misdiagnosis is that the people are dying at higher numbers than white folks because they're not being properly cared for. And then there's the other concept, which is the one I co-opt, called weathering, which is you've heard so many racist things, whether it's an aggression or a microaggression. They tax your body and your mind so much that your body starts to actually have physical reactions to these things in these sort of little micro, I don't know if they really use the term spasms or something like that, but it's just like a very small breaking down of your own health and wellness and resilience, so that you're almost more open to bad health issues because your body is taxed, it's weathered.
Yeah.
And so I do like this idea of weathering, because here in the States the big buzzword is microaggressions. You know, it's just that everyday racism that people don't think is racist, and they just say it, like, where are you from, or, oh, you're so exotic looking, where are you from, you know, that kind of stuff. Pretty much every line from your song, you know, like all those things that people say to you, are the things that are like these microaggressions that they, you know, they do say, well, why is it a big deal for me to ask? I'm just curious. But why are you curious? I'm not curious about where you're from. I've just accepted the fact that you're from here. You know, like, you talk like me, you look, you look like the other people here. You're just from here. I don't need to further investigate unless we're in something like a ethnography class or an anthropology class, or, you know, a social studies class that is dealing primarily with race and ethnicity. I don't, in general, have this question about other people, you know, and I'm mixed. I love talking about race. I love talking about culture. But in general, I'm not going to, you know, I don't walk up to every white person I meet and go, well, what kind of white are you? You know?
Well, that's the thing. But I think DNA tests, heritage tests, have actually been really good at highlighting this more recently, because there's been people, I mean, the kind of news examples they throw out are, you know, like white supremacists who find out that they have descent to, you know, the African continent,
right?
and they go like, what? And they, you know, they can't believe it. And it's that thing of tracing your. It's a really good thing. I'm going to try and do it this year, but I think it's a really good thing to do, just to see how many. You know, you can have white skin. You can seem to be from one culture. You can think you're from one area, and you can see actually that people have moved and you have heritage from all over the world.
Right.
And I think that is a good thing for people to realize. You know, that we did come from one continent originally, and we, you know, we are just all human. People say, you know, what am I? What am I? And I say, you're human. You know, and it would be nice if I, you know, you saw me as just a human and a British person, to be honest.
Right.
But it is a difficult thing.
So, like, for me, I've always kind of thought nothing, you know, I've heard the terms like mixed people are going to save us, right? They're going to defeat racism, because eventually we'll all be mixed enough that, you know, there won't be any distinguishable races anymore. I think that's garbage. I think it's the silliest, stupid thing. I mean, here in the States, we had
I think the worst thing is what people worry about it. They say, oh, you know, we're going to lose white people. I say, what's the worry? I don't understand what the problem is.
Right. So like, from my perspective, and as a mixed person who probably looks more like people will look like 100 years from now, or 50, you know, even 200 years from now, or something like that, right? Because I'm kind of the blending of multiple colors and cultures and ethnicity and stuff like that. Even I am thinking, I don't necessarily want to lose these things, these groups that make me feel kind of interesting and special, but I also just do want to be viewed with a certain amount of humanity. I want you to see me for my ethnic background and for my heritage and stuff like that, but I also want you to just leave me the fuck alone, right? So I think like the only thing that could happen to unite people of all races as a full-on human race, like people always say, I'm human, is if we were attacked by aliens. Like, it's the only thing, because there's nothing we've done in, you know, 10,000, 20,000 years of humanity that is showing that we'll unite in any, you know, sometimes we unite under a common enemy and then we separate again, you know, things like that. So unless, in the highly unlikely scenario that in the next, you know, couple of decades, some alien species comes and attacks us, we're divided, and that's just it. So we need to figure out how to learn about each other so that we can just coexist on this planet without it being a whole crazy thing, you know. And
but I definitely agree. But in this song, you know, I say them and us, and I think it is that thing. I think people realize who is them and us when you say when you're kind of questioned, when you have an enemy that's kind of asking you to unite. But I think the problem now is that people see mixed people as them, not us.
Yes.
And then they're like, well, that's the new them, and they're going to take over.
Right.
As this, you know, they treat it as this enemy. And I think I looked at a lot of videos online that have this kind of, you know, that if people of different colors have children, and we get what they say racial mixing, which I'm not sure I like that term, but that we somehow lose our heritage, that somehow as a people, as a community, we're diluted. And I think that's the one thing that I want people to understand. That I'm very proud of my heritage, and just because you have a different skin color doesn't mean you can't, uphold your own heritage, your own traditions, and care about them a lot.
Well, there's a lot of weird things that happen to us anyway. Like there's throwback genes that come out from 100 years back that no one understands. Like I have a half sister who has blue eye, or she had blue eyes for the longest. Now they're more kind of green, but nobody in our family is like this. So where did it come from? I had to come from way, way back, because nobody in at least the last 3 generations in which we knew people were living did we have this eye color. So clearly weird stuff can happen. And to even try to think, like the idea of a pure race or a pure group of pure blood, I guess, versus like just being full or half or whatever. This idea makes no sense to me. Not just because of the migration patterns of humanity, but like in my case, I am literally concocted of multiple continents. My black grandfather was in the military and was stationed in London and met my British white grandmother and brought her here and had babies. My white, German, Irish, Appalachian, possibly inbred grandfather, whose family had been here since the 1700s, before the United States was even formed, was stationed in Japan during the Korean War, married my Japanese grandma, brought her here. My British grandmother's people originate in Spain during Elizabeth I's reign, and was captured and brought to London, and that's why my British family is black-haired, like a kind of a steely gray, blue-eyed or whatever. So, and I said blue with my sister, and I was meaning green. Like they started out blue like most babies, but they turn green. There's no green-eyed people in my family. But my British grandmother has these steely, icy blue eyes and black hair, which isn't necessarily the typical thought of when you picture a British person, it's because it's this throwback from far back. So to think that like you come from something pure is so stupid.
It's strange, isn't it? Yeah. But it's that thing of you just have that, I guess it's that ignorance of it, or just you didn't know it because you've never been questioned on it, you've never thought about it. But that's the difference, I think, for people who are mixed, because they're constantly questioned about it. So they have this sense of maybe I should find out, or should look, or I should know. Whereas if you're white, you don't maybe, or even if you're black, if you just have one place that you've always been from, your family, you think that your family's always been from. You never look into it so much. Maybe if you're not interested.
What I imagine is different about black people in the UK versus here in the States is here in the States, nobody's asking black people where they're from, because that's going to raise slavery as a ugly conversation that no white person wants to have. Whereas like in the UK, you have a larger population of immigrants from Africa and other nations that go there. That happens here, but is so small in comparison, numbers wise, than what you experience out there. So like, a black person here has to come with an accent, or no one's going to ask the question, where are you from? If they sound like they're from the Caribbean, they're going to assume Jamaican and forget that there's like 700 other groups in the Caribbean. And the same with African. If you come with an African accent, it doesn't occur to white people here in the States that Africans have different countries that they could potentially be coming from. So they're all just African. They're just a continent of people, not a bunch of countries.
Crazy, right? Because it's massive. Africa is massive.
It's bigger than everywhere else. Like you could put our continent and your island and part of Asia into Africa. That's so ridiculous.
Crazy.
All right, so going back a little bit more, so you said about 12 years old or so, you kind of started to waken up to the idea that there was something that you guys were being othered for, whether you fully grasped it or not. Do you feel like where you're at now compared to where you are there, like what happened to you to kind of make you start to deal with this question, at least enough to put it into your music?
I think Well, I think like I said, like I think I just wrote it off for most of my teens as just kind of, when that waitress said, that can't be your mum. That was about the only time that I got upset about people saying it. I was just used to it. Every class, people would write my name on. You get those yellow text books at school. We get these like yellow to write notes in,
Yeah.
and people would write my name on the front, James, and then hold it up to their face. And they just laugh. And if I said anything,
What?
the response would be, just Chinaman, and then everyone would laugh, and that would be the end. So like I was used to it. It wasn't, and these were some of them. It started as a friend thing, and then it became like a wider. Everyone said it, and every day, and then it became really tiring. And to start with, I found it funny, but it's just one of those things. I think everyone has their thing at school, and you kind of get. I just got used to it. Didn't think a lot of it, and it was only when that guy called me a coon that I started to think, maybe there's more to it.
Right.
And so more recently, I've just been more aware of the fact that it's really strange how strange it is that people care so much. Like there are videos on YouTube telling people don't race mix, like it's a terrible thing.
Right.
It's the worst thing you can do, and you're ruining cultures, and you're ruining my culture. It's just I think that's crazy. So I think for more now, I think it's just this thing of maybe it's an experience thing that people don't understand how mixed people feel, and that there can actually be more than one feeling. They don't just some people are happy that they're half something and half something, or they're whatever, and they go into that. For me, it's different. I just think I'm me, and I have my skin color, and I'm proud of it, and that's it. So I think it's that thing that people don't understand the nuances, and they don't understand the difficulty, like you said, the microaggressions.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to put this song out, because I wanted people to understand, hopefully, on that side, to understand more of kind of the experience. And it takes it quite far in the song by saying, essentially, do I have a home? That's essentially what you're making me feel like, is that I don't have a home. That
Right.
I don't live. I'm not from here.
Yeah, and that part's really touching to me as well, and I assume other mixed race people, once they hear it, which we're gonna play it, will attach to also. It's that they have to like kind of fight or scream just to say like, how is it that the place I'm born, like the land I'm born on, I don't have access to, just because you've decided you're more fit for this space than I am,
Yeah.
That was a really touching part of the song in particular. So beyond the Half Blood Prince track, what else do you have for your music? What are you hoping to develop into?
Yeah, so I've got a song that I'm releasing in April. I think it's going to be released there. I'm just going to release music now sporadically throughout the year.
Okay.
And I'm talking about different issues. I think the next song is about lots of the bullying that I experienced at school, and just moving on. I was in a just to give my understanding of music and what I'm trying to do. I was in a relationship that broke up last year, and when I came out of it, I don't know how you listen to music, but I have all these different playlists on Spotify, and I was going through all my songs, listening to all these songs, and they were all about love. And I got so like, oh my god, like every song I listen to is about love. And I never realized until then. And so for me, it's really important to write about other things that are important. Like love is important. It'll be one thing that I write about, but it's one of many things. And so a lot of my music are about experiences that I've had, whether it's things like this to do with race, or to do with bullying, or to do with society or free speech or whatever it is. So I write about lots and lots of different things. And like I said, I'll be releasing lots of music this year, and then see where it goes.
We are getting close to the end of our time, which is pretty wild how fast it went, because I was super tired when we got started, because it's the middle of the night for me and really early for you, but now I'm not tired anymore. So why don't you, it's a question that I just recently started asking at the end of my show, because, we do deal with trauma and pain and things like that. What is it that you really love about being mixed?
I think it's the choice. I feel like it can quite often say, and lots of people say, it's this responsibility, and I don't feel like I have a choice because everyone else has an opinion on me.
Right.
But for me, once you take that back, and I always say, think of it like a child. Like like no one else's opinion matters. Like you don't even think about other people's opinions. You're thinking about yourself and what you think. And I think when you start to think, okay, what relates to me? What do I want to do? And not overthink it. I think for me that was the part that now it's really freeing to be just me and have my heritage. And it's really nice that it's quite diverse because it means I get to experience lots of different cultures and lots of different things in a way that maybe other people don't. And I can relate to other people in a sense, because of that, because of my experiences being mixed, which I think is really great. So yeah, and then I think I should say on a funny note, wherever I go in the world, I always get spoken to in that language because they think I'm from there. So whenever I go to Turkey and people I learn hello. So I'd say hello, and then they'd start full on conversation in Turkish, and I'd be like, oh my god.
You're like, oops, sorry.
Yeah.
I went too far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't learn your language. So so like on a funny note, I think that's one funny thing I get from it.
That's pretty funny. There are times when I have pretty decent pronunciation in Japanese, but I have terrible grammar, terrible vocabulary, not even remotely fluent. But I got like a handful of sentences that I say so good that a Japanese person will just start talking to me, and then I'm like, whoa, like, I apologize, I went too far. That's pretty funny. One thing we didn't talk about, but tends to come up a bunch, so I'll just ask, even though it's not normally a question that I ask. What are the foods from your different cultures that you really love?
Well, the foods. Oh man, that's a good question. Well, in the UK, I mean, they say curry, which kind of gets to me a little bit because it's not curry. But
you mean the blanket term for all like South Asian food is curry?
Yeah, if you go to India and say curry, I mean, they maybe understand now because they know Brits come over and say that, but they will have a clue what you're saying. It's an English term. It's a British term, curry. But yeah, I mean, India. I love Indian food. I love the kind of sauces that they make. I don't really have a favorite. I really like spicy food.
No, I'm a spicy person too.
Yeah. So yeah, anything my grandma makes really is just great.
Isn't that funny?
She's great.
Yeah, that's the same. Well, okay, so actually, no. For my Japanese grandma, anything she makes, like, I will gobble it up. I love it. My British grandmother let me clarify. My Caucasian British grandmother, on the other hand, boiled everything and put Lea and Perrin mint sauce on everything. So
really,
I'm gonna take the big fat zero on that one.
I personally, the British food, it's always a weird thing, British food, because I think people think like fish and chips, we found out, I think, isn't British, but we always think we've kind of adopted it as British thing.
Right. Americans, that's the one thing they ask too. If you've said you've been to England, they're like, did you have fish and chips? It's the only thing they know. Yeah.
Well, apparently it's not British. So yeah, I don't really know British food, to be honest, a huge amount. A lot of meat, usually.
There was a few things growing up, like, my Nana would say, we're having bubbles and squeak tonight, or we're having spotted dick or whatever. And then, like, to say that to Americans, and they're like, what are you eating? You're just like, whatever, it's their food. I will say, though, even though I've recently become a vegetarian in the last couple of years, and I'm transitioning, I'm trying to get all the way to fully plant-based, but before this time, I do love a British breakfast. There's
an English breakfast.
Yeah, a proper English breakfast is like my favorite things. Like, that's all the things that I love to eat. But yeah, I can't have that anymore because I'm transitioning.
Not even like, I think beans. That's about it.
Beans, pretty much. Yeah. Like, even now, I try to mimic it as much as possible, and where I'll have like beans on toast or something like that. But that's like the closest that I can get to that old breakfast. So that is one area that I really actually miss. That's the British food that I miss. Yeah. I am different from most Americans. I am a snob about what kind of tea I drink and things like that, because I've had many a stab of the fork in my finger because I didn't hold my cup right, or didn't pour my tea into my cream, my milk and all that kind of stuff.
People get really, really upset about that.
Oh yeah, big time. So, and that's something that is so weird to Americans, because Americans like coffee, and tea is kind of a burden. like especially like wait staff they hate you if you ask for tea, you know, because it's a whole
Really?
thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in that case, that, you know, my early days of my childhood with my nan, that's what it was. It was, you know, we had tea. And then on my flip side, my Japanese side, we have green tea too. So there's like times of day that I really crave like British tea, and then times of day I really crave Japanese tea. And so I'm just like drinking tea all day long. But I'm very much a snob about what I get. I get all my stuff sent to me from London. Like
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
What kind of teas?
There's a couple that I go. So there's a place in is it Coventry Gardens that it's called the Tea Palace, the London Tea Palace, and they have purple canisters. So yeah, I get it from there, and I get a couple of them. I get their Earl Grey and their English breakfast or whatever, but I also get this one. It's like a green tea, but it's got flowers in it. It's called Blue Sky, and it smells like fruit punch.
Really?
It's weird. It doesn't taste like fruit, but it has a really lovely flavor to it, but it's like a green tea. And so I get that, and I get, you know, their British things. I also like Ahmad teas, which we don't have here in the States, so I have to get it from there. But I think that's a pretty like general over the counter whatever there, but not here. We can't get it here. Like here, what we get is Tetley's.
Oh,
yeah. We get that here, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's a British tea." It's like, yeah, okay. We get that, and we get, what do we get? The other one, I forget what the other one's called. I can picture the box, but I can't think of what it's called. But yeah, so like I'm a disaster when I go out in public because I always want tea, and then I have to, you know, try to explain that it's because of my upbringing. One more way that I kind of out myself as a mixed race person, you know, when I have to go in public, because I've asked for something that no American in their right mind would do. It's great when I travel though, because everywhere else does it. It's just not an American thing. All right. Well, all right. Before we get out of here though, this has been awesome. Before we go, do you want to share your social media and everything with people so they can know how to find you?
Sure. My name on Instagram and Twitter is Dugan FBP, Full Blood Prince.
Okay.
So yeah, you can find me at that. I'll send you a link. So
right, I'll put all the links in the show notes. But both your Twitter and your Instagram are that. And then do you have a SoundCloud channel, or do you just have one song?
I have a SoundCloud channel, and the song's also on Spotify. So I'll send those links as well. Thank you for having me on. It's been great chatting to you.
Well, thanks for reaching out to me. I mean, there's nothing more exciting for me than just a random contact that you didn't know somebody before. You know, like I'm like, oh, how'd you find me? So I'm excited about that. So thank you for reaching out. We're building a community of mixed race people here through Militantly Mixed, but we're also trying to build a footprint of mixed people doing mixed shit out in the world. Like, get it out there. We could be our mixed ass selves out there. So thank you again. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing more stuff from you.
Yeah, thanks.
Militantly Mixed is a ManeHustle Media podcast, produced and hosted by me, Sharmane Johnson. Music is by David Bogan, The One. And if you like what you heard on Militantly Mixed, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes and wherever you find your podcasts. ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.